Baby, breathe. Come home to yourself, darling. Breathe it all out. Breathe it all in. Oh, oh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When the weight of this whole world feels so heavy on my soul, I got to remind myself to breathe through it. When the shadows and the depths will not let me get no rest, I got to tell myself to breathe through it. Baby, breathe. Come home to yourself, darling. Breathe it all out. Breathe it all in. Breathe it all in. Baby, breathe. Come home to yourself, darling. Breathe it all out. Breathe it all in. Don't make it complicated, babe, just breathe. Let your chest rise up and fall down naturally. Don't make it complicated, babe, just breathe. Let your chest rise up and fall down naturally. Baby, breathe. Come home to yourself, darling. Breathe it all out and breathe it all in. We take a deep breath together. Count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And hold it for 4, 3, 2, 1. Release with a sound. So breathing and being here.
Wow.
Woo! Nina! Woo! What a way to start a Sunday morning. My goodness.
Let's all twinkle Nina. Let's all
Yeah.
twinkle her. That was just beautiful.
Yeah, that was so gorgeous. You're either going to make me learn how to play the guitar, or I'm going to have to record you and play that song every time I'm leading a breathing session.
I'm here for it. And the teachings make me continue these gifts on forward.
Nina, we were able to hear you playing beautifully, but when you're speaking, it's soft, so you may need to raise the volume up a little bit on your microphone.
See if that's a little bit better.
Well, welcome everybody, and I want to welcome all the people watching us on various Facebook pages and on Unify. Unify is now carrying The Awakening World on Friday nights and Sunday mornings, as well as Saturday nights. So welcome everybody watching on Unify. Welcome everybody watching on the different sign networks. I also want to welcome the people watching on the MLK Beloved Convergence. So it's really beautiful how we're all collaborating. And for those of you who want to come into our Zoom room, it's very easy. Just open up a browser, go to globalpeacetribe.com, globalpeacetribe.com, and register. And you'll immediately get an email that gives you the Zoom link. You can come on in. We have a really lovely group of people, about 20 of us. And there's always 20 to 40 on Sunday mornings. We chat, we connect. And I want to just introduce our two wonderful guests. You already heard Nina Gray singing. She is an amazing artist, but also, Nina, you bring such class to everything that you do. You really do. There's a way that you bring your heart, your wisdom, and just beautiful class to everything you do. And I am always honored to be in your presence. And we also have with us as a featured presenter today, Dr. Marty Casey. And Marty is an activist. I love that term. She's an actress and an activist, and she combines the two together. She's also the founder of the Ungun Institute and has done amazing work. And she was just in November, she received the Presidential Award signed by President Joe Biden. So she's, we're blessed to have really a nationally known activist with us today. And Marty, you just sent me a text earlier this week. You got a new role. You got cast in a new role this week.
That is correct. I will be starring in a film, and it will also be a television series. So it's a two-part, if you will. I'm excited about it. And it is called The Mink Slide. And if anyone who may be familiar, and it's interesting because this is it coincides with what we're talking about this weekend as we're celebrating Dr. King and all of the things that he stood for. But the Mink Slide is based off of a true story of the 1946 riots in Tennessee. And I actually played the mother, Gladys, and she was the individual where the racism was basically charged against her. And her son was just home from the war and had gotten her a radio, I think, from Germany. And so there's different kind of cords or what have you of how, plugging in those devices or what have you. But the bottom line is she had some trouble with the radio and she took it to a local shop to get it fixed. And they stole the radio from her and they took her through a lot of different changes. So this is a true story. And they took her through a lot of different changes of getting that radio back. And she just was not going to allow them to do that to her with this gift that was given to her, by her son. And so the last time, I think maybe 3 or 4 times of going back and forth to the shop, she took her son, and the son actually got into a fist fight with the owners of the shop, and they went through a plate glass window. So you can imagine that in 1946, here's a Black man from the service, and he's on the streets, he's fighting these 2 white men, and other people was coming and standing around, and they called the police, and the mom had to jump in it because they were beating up on her son, and they ended up getting jailed. They wanted to then arrange a lynching. And so from that, they had to get a Thurgood Marshall involved, and he had to come to fight this case. And that is, it is, when you read about this story, that's why our history is so important with who Dr. King was, what he stood for, and all that is still encompassed in his legacy. We must hold on to our history and teach our children this part of it, because these stories is what helps us to not make the same mistakes that we made before. We could have already fixed a lot of the problems that we're having today if we would just talk about what happened, why it happened, and what can we do different. But what we have to do, if there's one thing that I would like to just say real quick, Scott, in telling our stories, we have to tell the whole story. That means the good, the bad, and the not so cute, right? We have to tell the entire story. And when I sit on platforms speaking about Dr. King every year, I always show what I showed last night, which is the actual This is the actual newspaper of Dr. King when he was slain. And that is important that we remember this, because we seems like we only really want to talk about this time of the year, the dream, which is the positive part. But how did we get to a place of not having Dr. King today? He was killed. He was murdered doing the work. And so we have to tell the whole story. And that's why I'm so happy, Scott, that you allow people like myself and Nina and Pato and Antoinette to come and really speak the truth of these stories. It's so important.
Oh, thank you. And of course, Thurgood Marshall was the first Black Supreme Court Justice.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like the movie that you're making is kind of a introducing, before he became that famous, kind of maybe it was like a landmark case, perhaps in his evolution and his being acclaimed as the great leader that he truly was, and a great thinker, a really beautiful thinker.
Absolutely. And there's some clips out there about this, and there's a professor that's speaking about it. If you get a chance, I'll try to look it up while I'm on here so that I can share that link. But this professor breaks down this story, and she talks about how after Thurgood Marshall actually he tried that case and he won. And then he was now leaving town. They wanted to do a lynching on him as well. And so when you hear what actually took place, and to know how our Black leaders have been attacked, throughout history, when we, not now, and I don't want to say this as if like, we don't make mistakes, or that there's good and bad people in every culture. But when you look at our known Black leaders, there has never been a time where their life has not been a subject matter and being attacked, and their life being threatened. And I think that there's really something wrong historically on how we're showing up with one another when we continue to see the same thing over and over again. Something's wrong. They say if you're doing something over and over again and the results remain the same and it's negative results, that's crazy. So some of the things are how we're handling each other in the, not just in the world, but specifically in the United States. There's some things that we can do to heal. We have to heal. We got to get past our not mentally showing up in the manner that we could.
Two things. I'm going to read some of the comments that are coming in, and I want to invite all of our Zoom friends and our friends on Facebook to put in the comments what Dr. Martin Luther King has meant to you. How has he influenced your life? And I'm going to share some of those comments. And before I do that, in reference to what you just said, Marty, when George Floyd was murdered, Trish and I did 6 straight shows on Straight Talk with people such as yourself, including yourself and including Nina. And the biggest aha that happened for me was I started by saying, oh my God, it was so shocking to us to watch a modern day lynching. And all of my friends of color said it wasn't shocking to us at all. We've grown up with this. This is what's happening all the time. It's just that this happened to be filmed and broadcast and was so blatant, right? And that, I get tears to my eyes just thinking about that. That to me, it's like, oh my God, how shocking. But for most of you, it's like, no, this is the life we've grown up with. And Black mothers talking about having to give the talk to their children about never run, always, if you get pulled over, how you have to be, just like, and ways that as a white man I never even had to think about. So it is shocking, and we have a long, long, long way to go. Absolutely. I do want to read a couple comments, and then I want to hear from Nina. Charlotte writes, Dr. King and Angela Davis and Malcolm X and others have taught me I can't just be a moderate, nice white person. I need to be radically and actively anti-racist, and this takes constant work and reflection on my part. Thank you, Charlotte. That's a beautiful start. Shauna writes, Dr. King has deeply touched me by his words. all the amazing quotes that we still have from him. Thank goodness that we keep getting his words and I think his vision out to the world. Jeffrey Colbrook writes, a message from Joel Goldsmith. The law of love makes it inevitable that the person who seems to have been harmed is really blessed. That's interesting. Charlotte writes, love and greetings from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. I live right across the river from Detroit, which is our sister city, and Dr. King actually practiced his I Have a Dream speech in Detroit before giving the famous address in Washington. I did not know that. So I'll take a look and see what's coming on from our friends on Facebook. Nina, what comes up for you next?
Goodness. I want to say congratulations, Dr. Marty, on this role. I know you're the perfect person for it, and to bring forth these pieces of history is absolutely so important. I feel really grateful to have grown up in an environment where my father was adamant about educating us not only on the Black history and the struggles, but also the brilliant Black minds, the inventors, the luminaries, the thought leaders that didn't get the airtime or the center stage or the spotlight simply because of the color of their skin and the oppressive systemic system and soup that we've been meddling in for so long. But with that, I say that there's in the actions that we can take now, whenever we have an opportunity to lift up our voice or share a quote or an idea or a standard of intelligence, beauty, talent, there is such a vast pool of people to choose from, and the default, the status quo that we've all been programmed in, it has been the widest right choose from the voice and the presence and the optics of typically white men. And while there's nothing wrong with what comes from the voices and ideas and souls of white men, there's also so much goodness that comes from every shade, every person. And so I always try to stay conscious of that, and really every day if I'm going to quote somebody, or I'm going to share an image or bring forth something that of value and meaning and contribution, to really search myself and make sure I'm not upholding the status quo by doing what has been done and ingrained in me as what is right. And that standard and that action just feels important, because we all get to be a part of shifting the tide and creating space for voices and ideas and the collective gifts that when we all get to contribute to the middle, we get to really rise up and elevate. And I also, what is present too, that you brought up healing, and I don't think we can talk about the work that needs to be done and not talk about healing. On a cellular level, the study of epigenetics, of how trauma can be passed down through DNA, and also joy can be passed down through DNA. So both exist. But because of what we've seen with so many Black leaders slain, you can't deny that has created an atmosphere of slight fear for any young Black person to stand up and be seen and speak their truth and act as a leader, just because historically that has been so unsafe. So understandably, and God gratefully, there's so much courage and resilience and strength in our people that hasn't created a huge undertone of that hasn't held people back that need to move, that feel inspired to speak and show up. But we could also do our part in creating atmospheres of safety and of healing and of diffusing so much of the toxic energy that has been poured specifically into the Black community through healing groups and circles and work.
You saying so much, Nina, that I can respond to, and I want to just be respectful to the platform and making sure that we not interfering and allowing Scott to bring other people forward. But I have to just share a few things, sister. You so on top of things. I'm telling you, the work that you and I can do together, and I hope that we can make some time to talk after this because it's just some things I just need to share with you that I would love to invite you in on. Trauma's transferable. That's the first thing. Trauma is transferable. And one of the quotes that my quote that I use all the time is healing. I'm sorry. Hurt people, healed people, heal people. See, we've heard that first part all the time, hurt people, but we stopped it right there. So that means we stopped it at the problem and we didn't bring a solution forward. So I wanted to make sure that I attach my name to something that you understand, that I understand what a problem is, but here's the solution. Yes, hurt people, problem. Healed people can heal people, solution.
Come on.
And so you start with self. We got a big global problem here. We got a world problem here. But if we look at it as like, how are we going to eat this elephant? Then you looking at the whole big elephant trying to figure out how can your tiny body digest this big elephant? Well, I need you to look at everything as one bite at a time. So that means I need you right now to start with self. When you walked us through the breathing technique, one of the things through Ungun Institute, and let me just kind of explain what Ungun Institute means, because sometimes people get stuck on the name because the name gun is in there. Ungun is simply so that you can mentally visualize and remember what it's like to be hit by a trauma bullet. How many of us have been shot by trauma bullets? Drive-by shootings, you didn't even realize anything was going to happen that day, and it did, and it stuck with you. And for the whole rest of your life, you are seeing that these things are taking place with you. And how do you ungun that? How do you move from that place? How do you heal? How do you let go and not continue to suppress? Because that's what we've been taught. We've been taught that listen, whatever it is you're dealing with, that's not everybody's business. That's not everybody's problem. Just push it down, keep going. And that's how you hold that container of hurt. So then when something happens that triggers you, boom, that bullet fires off and it explodes, and it shoots and then hits somebody else that you didn't intend to hit. Or it explodes inside of yourself and that self-harm kicks in. So through Ungun Institute, we are literally trying to teach individuals how to disarm these trauma bullets. And so when Nina talked about that from a very specific place of our Black leaders, I want you all to imagine something that you probably never imagined before. When Dr. King was killed in 1968, he was shot and killed. How many other Black people you think also was hit by a trauma bullet? Every Black person in the world was also shot by a trauma bullet when Dr. King was killed. How many Black people you think have been shot in slavery? How many do you think have been shot when we have to stand up and protest for Michael Brown, for George Floyd, for all of the other names that you come to know, Oscar Grant, Trayvon Martin, and I can go on and name them all because I'm an activist, and those names, they're in my mind. Those are trauma bullets I've been hit by. And the only way that Dr. Marty can show up and do this work as an activist is that I use the arts to infuse in love, to create ways to come and communicate better with my brothers and sisters, those who look like me and those who do not, so that we can heal. Because if we, all of us, if we don't get to that solution side of healing from this trauma, we will also slowly die by the impact of what we have ignored for so many years.
So I'll take a breath, so kind of breathe that in and acknowledge the trauma bullets we've been hit by, and how when such a beautiful soul as Dr. King is taken from us, it impacts us all.
Yes,
Impacts us all.
that's right.
I was 12 in 1968 when both Bobby Kennedy was assassinated and Martin Luther King was assassinated. And 12 is, that age where you're not a child anymore. You're kind of beginning to embrace the world. And I remember, in the case of when Bobby was assassinated, I had a transistor radio, and from the time he was shot until he was declared dead, there was about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 hours in between. And I remember that night in bed listening to the transistor radio, and then as Martin Luther King was killed, I think Martin Luther King, if I recall correctly, he was killed in March or April, and then Bobby was killed in June, and it just felt like the world was just so insane. And as a 12-year-old, those trauma bullets did impact me. I remember just wondering, this is insane. How can in the same year our two most vibrant, powerful leaders, because I was young enough, old enough to where, I was go Bobby Kennedy, president, you know, and to see both Martin Luther King and him killed. And it is as though some dream died, and then look at what we got instead. We got Richard Nixon, God bless his soul. And so it is as though whatever happened, those trauma bullets changed our world. Totally changed our world.
And I would love to just add a piece to that too, because I
Yeah.
love the teachings of Marianne Williamson, and how she states often that we cannot move forward as a nation until we have a national time of atonement,
Mm.
where we acknowledge the fact that these trauma bullets, in an atmosphere where this kind of warfare has been allowed, to really diffuse, resolve, atone, acknowledge, hold space for the collective tears that are stored in our bodies, the rage, the screams, the grief. Um, it seems pretty difficult to move forward without that. And I'm a firm believer that our nation gets to have that, so we can all move forward on the same step together. Because when you read papers of the CIA being behind a lot of these assassinations, Huey Newton, Fred Hampton, the list goes on. And for us to regain a sense of trust and safety and allegiance to a nation that has often betrayed our people, we really get to be on the same page and diffuse a lot of this pent up emotion and trauma. And I know, Dr. Marty, like the work that you're doing, is you're doing it. And I can't wait for more people to be in this space of creating space for this kind of healing. And the way my imagination sees it, across this whole nation, we'll have maybe a whole year where we just dedicate to the healing of our people, and resurrect new monuments, and show never before seen documentaries and films in every theater across the land, and hold ceremony, and really get to purge, digest, reflect, and move forward together.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
I just love what she said. And I'd just like to invite, we've got between Facebook and Zoom, I don't know, maybe 100 people right now watching. Let's all take a minute and hold the vision for what Nina just suggested. Imagining that our awakening world evolves to such a place that an entire year is set aside for at least national and perhaps planetary atonement. So, in whatever way that touches you, let's just take a minute of silence and pray for that and hold that vision. Let's take a deep breath and we'll hold it for 4 seconds. Inhale. Hold. And as we exhale, we release our vision to God, to life. Take it away, Marty.
Thank you, Scott. I see here in the chat that it looks like Bonnie Lee, she has written Trauma Bullet. Thank you, Bonnie. And again, this is language of Ungun Institute. And then underneath you put Healing Bullet. Now, Bonnie, I want to honor what you have creatively put together, but I want to make sure that again, Trauma Bullet is shared language of Ungun Institute, and we wouldn't say Healing Bullet because a bullet is still something that can bring harm, and our goal is to disarm anything that will bring harm to you. So that is the reason that we ungun. Ungun is the process of being able to safely disarm and remove any trauma bullets in our mind, body, and spirit, so that it will no longer bring harm to self or to any others that we are engaging with. But I do appreciate you, Bonnie, listening in and really getting the idea of allowing it to stick and understanding that, again, this new language if we all got on the same accord with this new language and this idea of even what Nina just spoke about, that and through these platforms that Scott has, this is how we can start to make these changes, because it's almost like when Dr. King knew that doing the boycott was necessary. He knew that he alone boycotting, it wouldn't have happened. Nothing would have happened, right? Just would have been one person boycotting that day. But he knew that he had to gather a group of people to believe in the language, believe in the idea, and believe in the movement, because there's power in numbers. And so that is why Ungun Institute, we are more than just a company or an organization that's doing work. We are creating a movement, a positive movement that is open for everyone. I don't care who you are, what language you speak, what your zip code is, where you live. It doesn't matter if you're short or you're tall. You can ungun and you can be a better person through self-care and self-confidence and how you show up. And when you show up better with self-love for yourself, you will then offer that to others that are around you. So it's just like the very simplistic thing when Dr. King said nonviolence. It's like, okay, someone hit me and I'm not supposed to hit them back. Why would you strike back on someone who's striking you? That then becomes a fight and somebody's going to lose. Somebody's going to win. So nonviolence. Allow that person who did what was wrong, allow the laws of the land to take care of that. You call the police, do whatever it is you need to do and get that person jailed or sue them, whatever it is you have to do. But don't you strike back. And so we're asking, if you ungun and you get rid of, remove, undo those things that do not serve you mentally, physically, and spiritually anymore, you getting rid of it. When you ungun, guess what you have to offer now? A clean heart and a clean slate and an opportunity to show up with positive energy. Nina talked about that early, that energy. And I want to tell you this, you have an I and an E. You tell me which one you want to insert. You want to be bitter or you want to be better?
That's good. Thank you so much, Marty. I want to read some of the wonderful comments that have come in from people on Facebook and in our Zoom room. On Facebook, I want to acknowledge Batani Wilson. She is with the Navajo Nation and she speaks a lot about the wonderful work that she's doing there. So thank you, Batani. She delivers water, food, cleaning supplies to elderly and those in need in the Navajo Nation. So thank you very much for that beautiful work. Kathy Roberts wrote quite a bit about how touched she was by Nina's opening song and by what you've shared, Dr. Marty. And she writes, when asked about how Dr. King influenced her, she said, I hear Jackson singing, "The river opens for the righteous someday, and we rejoice the day has finally arrived, as we are coming to the awareness of the whole truth busting through programming such as this." So thank you for that. Cindy writes, giving recognition to the Tohono, O'odham, and Pasqua Yaqui, on whose ancestral lands she dwells. Thank you for acknowledging our indigenous lands that we're all on, really. Kathy writes, violence is the knot of bondage. Nonviolence and love is the answer, and our children will thank us. Thank you. Thank you. And in our Zoom room, Christine writes, all of humanity has been traumatized. I believe we are relearning the wisdom that resides in trauma, and we are using this wisdom as a vehicle to grow. And Eleanor Joy said, all right, if not a healing bullet, how about if we could switch to a healing basket, a safe and warm container for healing? I love that.
You place those unwanted things from ungunning wherever you would like to place them. That is beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And Terrell, if you can hear me, I sent you a message, but you might not have seen it. Let me know if you'd like to come on and do a spoken word. We have Terrell Washington is in the house.
Yeah.
And he was on our show last week, and he's wonderful. So Terrell, let me know if you want me to pop the spotlight on you, and if you'd like to share a spoken word today.
Yes.
Can I share something real quick, Scott, for everyone to look up at their leisure?
Sure, please do, Marty.
If you have not had an opportunity to hear, I believe it was on NBC, when Dr. King actually had an interview in 1967 after the boycott. I highly recommend that you listen to that. As we spoke about earlier in the opening, that when we tell our stories of our greats and those who are even alive today, as we share our own personal stories, we must share our stories in truth, which means we must share our stories, the entire story. And we talk about Dr. King's dream. I have my shirt on today that says that I'm on a mission because he had a dream. So I'm on a mission because Dr. King had a dream. But when I tell the whole story, this 1967 interview is going to help you to really, really understand the entirety of the frame of mind that Dr. King was in. He even made mention that after doing his I Have a Dream speech, there were some parts of that dream that actually end up being a nightmare. And so I want you to just visually understand where Dr. King was, and in his mind, he was also traumatized by the work he was doing, right? There was a lot of healing that needed to even be taking place and self-care that should have been in place for Dr. King. This man was assassinated at 39, but they said that his organs was like of someone in their 70s. Because of the stress and the trauma that he was carrying. So when we see our leaders, even right now with our President Joe Biden, even I will even say with Trump, even Trump and any president, President Biden, President Obama, I don't care who it is that's in office, they are carrying a level of responsibility on their shoulders that none of us on a day-to-day can even imagine. Are we really praying for our leaders? Whether we voted for them or not, or we agree with what they stand for or not, are we praying for our leaders? And the reason I say this is because trauma is transferable. So if I see someone moving in a way of hurt, and all I can do is just negatively speak negative about how they're moving, I'm adding to it.
Mm. Mm.
But I want to now tap into their healing space.
Mm.
Let's change the perspective a little bit of how we communicate with one another and how we show up for one another, whether we believe in what that person is doing or not, because they are overseeing the space that we live in. We're all sisters and brothers in this great nation.
Thank you so much. While I've got the spotlight on you, I'm actually going to go to the Ungun Institute website and tell us a little bit. We're looking at it right now, Marty. Tell us a little bit more about how people can support the work you're doing.
Thank you, Scott, for this. Ungun Institute is a for-profit company. We are for-profit because we work with a lot of organizations around the world, helping to ungun different spaces, if you will. Like we work with Preferred Family Healthcare. We just did a workshop for them. So if you can imagine people who work in trauma-informed spaces, who's helping them to heal as they're showing up for the community and doing the work that they do, but they are still human and they're carrying a lot of hurt and pain themselves. It's important that we go in to help those companies show up for the people that's working for them so that they can be in a better space and place to continue to do the work that they do. I'm thinking about all of the nurses and the doctors right now who have constantly for 2 years been pouring out. Who's helping them to heal? See, we need to get with musicians like Nina to make sure that we put a compilation disc together and get this music in the hands of these doctors and nurses so that they can do 314 every day. 314, what is that? That's a technique in Ungun where I'm asking 3 times a day, choose one activity to do just for 4 minutes. That's self-care. 3 times a day, one activity to do for just 4 minutes. Imagine if every day for 3 times a day, a doctor is listening to that song that Nina opened with that spoke about breathing. That's pouring back into themselves. And the reason that's important, because when trauma happens, you have to have something to pull from. So you have to make these deposits, these positive moments and deposits inside of yourself. So when the withdrawal comes, whether you know it's coming or not, you have something to pull from and you don't go into the negative in your mind, in your body, in your spirit. Right? So Ungun Institute, when you ask a way that you can give, you can volunteer, you can make a donation, you can simply hire myself or my team to come and work with organizations or companies that you may be affiliated with. And the way that you contact us, please go to Ungun Institute, you can send us an email, or you can contact me directly at 314. That's why 314 is a thing. So 314.
Hold on, let me write this down. Let me get this ready. Contact Dr. Marty. I'm going to put it in the chat box at 314
518
518
5508. And just so you know, Scott, last night when we were on your show and I gave out the number, when I got off of the line, I had messages already where people were texting and calling. And I love that because that is where the action is happening. Yes. See, I'm not just out here saying things that might sound good in the moment. We're literally doing the work. We pray with our hands, but the action, we really make it happen with our feet. It's the movement. So it's the two together. They have to go together. We can't just pray. Prayer without works is dead. It's dead. And a great man has written that and put it in a book. So we have to move our feet in action. So I am here and available, willing to be hired, to come in. We can do Zoom work. You can fly me in town. I'm about to fly out next week. And so you can fly me in town to do whatever's necessary. I'm available and I'm willing.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, I love how we share resources, and actually watching us on Unify, and I want to welcome, we've got about 30 people watching us on Unify. Cindy Clate, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, just turned us on to a website that I wasn't familiar with. I'm going to go to it, called White Awake. And I want to acknowledge the majority of the people who are watching this show are white. And it's all about how we can wake ourselves up to be of benefit, recognizing that we have, just by being white, we have participated in a white privileged culture, and how we can learn about that and learn how we can become positive activists to help create genuine social and racial justice. So I love this. Ancestral Recovery for Collective Liberation. Ancestral Recovery for Collective Liberation. So thank you for telling us about that, Cindy. And, two other wonderful resources. And I am going to show a little bit of Sharif Abdullah, who I have actually, by the way, Marty, I, of course, scholarshiped you into his course, and he is starting his course in February. So we're gonna hear from Sharif in a moment. And he's with the Commonwealth Institute. And also, really want to acknowledge the wonderful work of Reverend Bridge Feltis. She created the Remembrance Institute and also teaches about systematic racism. And her course absolutely changed the life of my partner, Trish, my teaching partner. After Trish took her course, it just changed her whole life. She's taking it again. So I'll pull up those pieces. In a moment, I'm going to play a little piece from Sharif Abdullah. We saw him last night. I played him a little bit. And of course, Marty, you were on one of my previous shows with him. What stood out for you before I play this, what stood out for you about that?
Well, first of all, I'm so excited, Scott, about the gift, because I'm so excited to be in this class with him. This man is amazing and brilliant. His light shines, and he's the real deal. And I just love not only his presentation, but you can feel his spirit. His spirit is so alive, and you can feel his truth really coming through the work that he does. And to me, that is the most important part of what we do, when we can feel. I feel your truth coming through your music, Nina, and it's the same thing for him. And I think when they see this clip that you're going to show them, they'll get exactly what I'm saying. And I can't believe the people that you have on your show, Scott, but they say try the spirit by the spirit. You draw the people to your show like this because that's who you are. And we thank you. And we love you.
Thank you. Well, this is a short little piece that he shared with us. And it's a great story. So let's take a look. Go.
So this is what we call the Martin Luther King weekend, or the Martin Luther King holiday. And I think it's a great time for us to think about and talk about what is the legacy of Dr. King, and what is that relevance? What is his relevance to us today? For many of us, it's not a whole lot. And there are King celebrations going on. People are singing a whole bunch of spirituals, and I'm not into those. People are doing a whole lot of praying in Baptist churches, and I do some. I pray in all places, including churches. But really, what was King all about? Is he something from our past, or is he someone that can be relevant to us today? I think that it's interesting that King was trying to find his way even while he was alive. The high watermark for him was the 1964 Civil Rights Act and getting that passed, and his very famous "I Have a Dream" speech. But after that, he had trouble coming to grips with the totality of the experience happening in America. This is the time that his consciousness began to expand and expand beyond the issues of African Americans in our society, expand beyond the issues of economics or voting rights, and starting to look at the nature of our society as a whole. This is when he started getting involved in economic struggles. This is when he started getting involved in the Vietnam War. And this is when he started becoming very, very unpopular to the status quo of our society. This is the thing that I believe got him killed. That this notion of we have to reform America, not just for Black people. We have to reform America for all people. That there's something in our creed that gets us looking at our vision of how high our society could be. But then there's something in our actions that look at that where we are going in the opposite direction, away from community, away from connection, away from how we can live together as human beings. So I think that this legacy, the direction he was pointing at the problems with our economics, the problems with our politics, the problems with our society, is a whole lot more relevant than rebroadcasting for the umpteenth time the "I Have a Dream" speech and singing a lot of spirituals about that go all the way back to the times of slavery in America. So if King is going to be relevant, I think that we need to look at him not just in terms of his civil rights accomplishments, which are many. When we look at the presidency of Barack Obama, that presidency could not have existed in this society if it weren't for King. But we obviously have to look beyond that, because electing a Black president doesn't change very much. We have to understand what it is that needs to be changed and see how that thing needs to be changed. So our legacy is the legacy of King is part of our history, but for me that legacy is moving forward. King is a living force in how I do my work. King is relevant not just in terms of what has happened in our past, but as what is going to happen in our future. And our challenge is, are we going to allow that to happen, or are we going to miss our opportunity and literally face catastrophe? I think the choice is up to us right now, and I think that's a choice that we all have to take and all have to deal with and live with right now.
I recognize that I showed this last night, but I want to show it again. And I do want to say, like I did last night, I think there's nothing wrong with still singing the songs and doing the quotes. I think that he's just being emphatic that we need to do more. And if you do feel inspired by this beautiful man, and I know Marty did, so much so that Marty's going to take his course. And you can find out about his course by going to commonway.org. That's his organization, commonway.org. And this is the course that he's going to be teaching, that Marty's going to be taking, starting in February. Starts on the 2nd of February. And it's all about practicing the 12 steps of inclusivity, practicing the 12 steps of inclusivity. And, Marty, I scholarshiped you, and I also scholarshiped Trish. So you both will be doing, and if I can, now that it's in February, I might be able to do it. I knew that I was going to be pretty busy getting the Awakening World together. But I want to read a couple of comments in a moment, but I'd love to first open it up to both Nina and Marty. Anything you want to say in response or riffing on what you just heard Sharif share?
You want to take it, Marty?
If you don't mind, Nina, thank you. I just want to just say real quick that a lot of what he just shared is what I was speaking about last night and today, that we have to really look at the entirety of who Dr. King was and how he, came to be beyond just the dream. The dream was almost became a vision, and the vision then became a reality, and that reality kind of turned that dream into some parts of it as a nightmare, because he realized that, wow, although I am envisioning this to be, but we will never get to that place if we don't work on some of these deep rooted things. And so that is what I believe Sharif was just speaking on. I think we're all saying the same things, maybe in a different way, but we're understanding that is why we still ask the question, did Dr. King's dream come true? Is his dream still relevant today? Are we, how do we hold on to his legacy and his vision and his mission? Well, the way that we do that is that we have to almost envision him handing us the baton. And you receive the baton. What are you now doing so that the mission can continue to live? And when we carry the baton and we do our part, then now his mission is still alive through his legacy, because he's no longer here to receive it, but we are still being blessed by what we have received by what he planted. He planted some seeds that still are sprouting and we're benefiting from today. But the reality of it is, this is the last thing before I turn over to Nina, but this is the reality of it is, we got to deal with those bigger pieces that Dr. King talked about: racism, injustice. That when you look at Blacks coming out of slavery, we have not been given land. We have not been given money. Yes, we can now eat in the same restaurants, go to the same school, and we even had to fight for living in the same neighborhoods with the, with the Fair Housing Act. So at the end of the day, although we can now be in the same spaces, it doesn't mean that we're any less being targeted. And so have we really fixed those things that Dr. King dreamt about? He says, I have a dream one day that my little Black boys and white girls can hold hands. Yeah, we're holding hands. We're holding hands, but are we holding hearts? Are we holding hearts? Because inside of our hearts is where the love is. So we got to get beyond the dream and the mission and the vision, and we have to take the baton and do the work.
Thank you, Dr. Marty. And I just want to acknowledge, I'm not going to be able to mention everybody, but there's a lot of hearts right now coming from Unify, and on Facebook, a lot of people are sending hearts. So thank you for that. Thank you very, very much. And, we all are at different stages of that, Marty. I have friends that are still completely unaware of their racism. And I am increasingly becoming aware of my own. And I've been doing multicultural programming since I was a teenager. And I'm still learning as a white man. We're going to go to you in a second, Nina, but I want to acknowledge another resource that was just sent to us, also by Cindy, watching on Unify. CELPS, I didn't know about this organization. It's on Facebook. CELPS Against Oppression, Racism, and Neo-Nazism. And that you can find that on Facebook. So it's just beautiful to see that there are, we're all at our own different stages of understanding this. and recognizing what needs to change. One last thing I want to reference, Christy Michaels is on with us. I'll put the spotlight on Christy as I describe this. And Christy put together a beautiful show, which I hosted last week, which was a gathering for the healing of America with love. And you can now watch this on YouTube. It's a beautiful, beautiful video. And we had Michaela Gaston, who's she's like Nina and Marty, she's a remarkable woman. Michaela's story, when she was younger, a group of white racist teenagers, she was a pedestrian, intentionally ran her over and tried to kill her. Took her years to physically recover. And just as you talked about earlier, Marty, when somebody attacks you, you don't attack back. And she's become a peace advocate. She works for the State Department, helping refugees get reestablished. And she's an incredible woman.
Powerful. So
Very
powerful.
powerful, very powerful.
Yeah. This was the month before she was supposed to go to medical school that these white boys put her in the hospital for a year. And she would not let 1 ounce of her life force energy go to hate. From the second the incident happened, she says, my life is all about healing. It's all about recovery. It's all about peace and love. And she does global work with refugee kids in camps, creating that bridge for them where they're all frozen in trauma. And she sings to their heart because their heart is able to receive through music without knowing the words in the language. They don't speak the same language. And she just sings to them and their heart gets healed and opened. And so I highly recommend, thank you, Scott, for bringing this up. And Gary Malcolm, who's doing the Wisdom of the World music for the care of people. So helping people to get the heart coherence so that they're in their heart. It's beautiful. Anyway, thank you, Gary. Thank you, Scott.
So
it was a fabulous day.
This was a program that we had, that we did on January 6th, which of course was the anniversary of such a significant event in American history. And it was dedicating 1 year later to reunification, stopping this racial divide and coming into reunification. So thank you, Christy, for the wonderful work that you do. And I will tell people a little bit later on about what you've got coming up on Mary Magdalene Day. Nina, we have not heard from you for a little while, so I would love to just anything you want to share.
I want to acknowledge you, Scott, because you always bring forth this open sense of humility and curiosity about what there is still to learn and understand. And in your sense of privilege, knowing that our hearts are deeply connected, all of us, in the fabric of humanity, and the atmosphere of these avatars we're in has created some advantages and disadvantages for all of us. And so, I just have to thank you and speak on how deeply I appreciate your acknowledgement of what there is to learn and the ways that you're willing to grow, because it's that attitude that will continue to create not only atmospheres of safety, but of trust, that it really feels like we're in this together. And while we're doing our work of healing our traumatized communities, you're out here doing the work to ensure that continued traumatization no longer happens.
Wow.
And that's when we get to really all work on the same team and play our positions.
Thank you. Thank you, Nina. Thank you. I'll give 2 new things white man Scott has learned.
Let's go.
Languaging, blacklisting. Just, isn't that interesting? Blacklisting versus whitelisting.
Right.
Another one is master bedroom. Almost all of us have used the term master bedroom, and that term began in the South during the time of plantations. And so there's so much languaging that we use all the time that has this inherent racism woven into it, And as I learned that, and I get tears, it's like, for me, it's like, oh, wow, I had never thought of that. then I think about, my friends of color who have to live with that constant racism, even in everyday language. So we have a long way to go, Nina. We have a long way to go.
And we're going to get there with the continued efforts and the conscious efforts to be better and to do things differently and to heal and to grow.
I agree. And Scott, can I segue to that with us, with the language that is so important? And I saw where one of our a guest today, or someone that's tuning in, Nancy, was saying that she felt like Ungun was a double negative. Now, normally I don't respond to things that I don't necessarily agree with, but then I think it's important for us to really get to our truth, that we have to also have and be willing to communicate on things that are sometimes hard to hear or agree with or understand. So I respectfully, Nancy, would like to respond to your comment. Ungun, first of all, is one word. It's Ungun. It's one word, so it's not a double negative. And Ungun came about, Nancy, after the unrest of Ferguson, when Michael Brown Jr. was actually killed just 10 minutes from where I live. I'm not sure how long you were in the space, but I'm an activist. I'm a professional actress and activist. And I use my talents, if you will, or my gifts to infuse into the work that I've created with Ungun in the process of it, because it was important to me to make sure that on my watch, never would we have another child to be shot and killed by anyone, whether it was a police officer or a random person, shot and killed, and then in their body to lie out in a pool of blood for 4.5 hours while the whole world watched, and his mother was on the other side of the yellow tape trying to get to him. So when I looked at that process of what she mentally had experienced, and all of us who were also hit by that trauma bullet, it was important to me to make sure that I had language that matched, that others could understand and could comprehend in a time as such as 2022. So where we are right now may not be where we were 50 years ago or 400 years ago, but where we are right now as Blacks are fighting for their lives, with violence, of gun violence escalating all around the country, from police and even Black on Black crime. As gun violence continues to escalate, we must really create and speak to a language that can resonate with everyone. So I'm very excited about what I was able to create, and I'm very excited about what the attention that it has gotten, because I did receive a Lifetime Presidential Award from President Joe Biden for the work that I'm doing here at Ungun Institute just 2 months ago. So Nancy, thank you for your comment. In case others may have been thinking the same thing, I wanted to at least acknowledge that with love.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for that, for responding to that. And we're almost out of time to wrap up. And I want to thank everybody. I tried to read as many of the quotes as I could. I'm going to go back to Marty and Nina one last time to hear any final thoughts. Terrell, I never heard back from you as to whether you would like to share anything. Because if you are interested in doing a spoken word, unmute yourself and give me a thumbs up. I'm looking at you right now, and I'll pop you on the spotlight. Okay. Great.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Terrell. Hello, brother.
How are you, my man?
I'm so happy to see you here, and always appreciate what you have to say. Would you like to share a thought or a spoken word with us this morning?
My thought first, I have to just really say thank you, everyone who's participated, because it's made my morning. It's just an incredible experience to see the beauty of the knowledge being passed on, and the truth in the knowledge, and what we're going to do with it. Because until we change the languaging of who we are and what we are, and the energy, how we use it, and the footsteps that we take, things would not change. These are things that I've been doing since the 60s, and part of me is just a little dismantled by, we haven't come as far as we need to. There's so much more that needs to be done. But seeing something like this on air gives me hope. And I'm a, you know, I'm an activist myself, and I've been doing my artistry, and I'm using it as my tool and my gift of being that I can give to the world. I believe I came to the world with a gifting of artistry, and artistry in my heart, they are my gifts, and they are my weapons. Because I practiced nonviolence in the 1960s, and I've made it a part of my life, and it hasn't been easy, but it's made me a better person. And I remember that daily. And to hear people that are actively involved in the expansion of what needs to be done, it makes my heart expand. Because we've got to stop the division between our hearts and our minds. Our hearts sometimes go in the wrong direction, the direction of fear, and it's not needed.
Beautiful. Oh, Terrell, thank you so much. Just take a moment and breathe in that, and as a black man, thank you. Despite all that I will never know, all the shit you've had to put up with, that you have consistently chosen nonviolence.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Scott, can I just say something to Terrell real quick?
Of course.
Yeah.
Terrell, first of all, brother, thank you so much for your truth, your honesty, your gifts, your talents, and just sharing them with the world and standing in the spaces that you're standing in that only you can really respond to in a way that most of us, we may wonder what that feels like, but only you know what that feels like to be a Black man in America. And I, along with several other global leaders, we have created a commemorance, if you will, of a holiday entitled Black Sun, S-O-N Day, Black Sunday. And this is every second Sunday in August. We will be coming up on our third annual. And when I came to the space as a global leader, I said, if I'm going to be here, this is what I need to create, because I really need to give Black men and young boys an opportunity to speak about your experiences here in America, and that we take those things that have been harmful or hurtful to help you to heal. We got to get it past, again, the problem and move it to the solution side. So that is the reason for Black Sunday. And I would love to ask you to come and be a presenter on Black Sunday in August of 2022, and to perform one of your pieces that Scott invited you to come on to speak today. I would love to highlight you, sir, and to have you as one of our global performers this year for Black Sunday. So if you can go to unguninstitute.com and send me an email of saying yes, then I will make sure that you have all of the appropriate information. But your service through your artistry and just you being who you are, you are the people that we're looking for. You're the ones who we need to give a mic to and a seat at the table and an opportunity to speak and to be seen. And we thank you.
Thank you. I would love to come.
Oh, that makes me so happy to thank you, Marty, for that invitation to him. That's beautiful. One of the great joys of my life is bringing people together, like Marty, meet Terrell, Nina, meet Marty, and it's beautiful watching that happen. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So beautiful.
I'm gonna read just a couple of final quotes, and then we'll go to everybody for one last time. I want to thank Jim. Just put into the Zoom room here about a documentary about Howard Thurman. Last night, some of you saw I played a recording of my recent interview with Reverend Michael Beckwith, who talked a lot about the lineage, how Thoreau inspired Gandhi.
Right.
Gandhi inspired Howard Thurman. Howard Thurman inspired Martin Luther King, and Martin Luther King is inspiring all of us. And so thank you, Jim, for letting us know about a new documentary. And I'll post that link on Unify and some of our other Facebook pages. And again, everybody, definitely make sure you go to the Ungun Institute. Send your contact information so you can get emails about what Marty is doing. Terrell, thank you for joining us. It was beautiful to have you with us. Marty and Nina, I'm going to go to you one last time for any final thoughts you might want to share before we close out. Marty, the spotlight's on you.
Wow. I guess the final thought that I really would like to leave you all with, as a reminder, I spoke about it earlier. I cannot say it enough. Please take the time out for self-care. And I know that that's what, if Dr. King was here today, I'm sure that that's something that he would be shouting from the mountaintops, telling us the self-care is where it's at, everybody. We must have self-care. If we're going to see a change in America, it's only possible when we come together in our best self. So in honor of Dr. King as an actress, I just want to say to you, please stop and look in the mirror. Be honest about how you feel, what you're going through, what you're dealing with. Let it go so that we don't continue to accidentally or intentionally offend our neighbors, those who look like us and those who don't. We're all neighbors. We're all brothers and sisters. We all live in the same house, y'all. We all live in the same house. Your bedroom might be in that zip code and my bedroom might be in that zip code. But at the end of the day, we all live in the same house. Let's take good care of our home by taking good care of ourselves. So in honor of Dr. King and his legacy, again, as my shirt says, I'm on a mission because he had a dream. What's your mission? What's your mission for yourself? Blessings to all, and know that Dr. Marty stands with you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Marty. And you do a very good impression of Dr. King. Dr. Marty knows how to do Dr. Martin. That's for sure. That was beautiful. That was great. Love you, and I look forward to next connection. Absolutely. Charlotte writes, Dr. Casey, your work is so inspiring. I definitely want to learn more. And she speaks for a lot of the comments that we've received. Also, Moses wrote something beautiful, and then I'll go to Nina. Moses writes, we are being the change that is so needed with this sharing of important information. Many of us have never heard these important stories, sharing the truth of love. So thank you, Moses. How beautiful that his name is Moses on a sacred Sunday. Nina, I always so appreciate you and your presence. And any last thoughts you'd like to share today?
I mean, what's on my heart right now is just gratitude for this space and community and space to speak these truths and move our way through to the promised land that I know we're going to get to, like Martin knew we were going to get to it too. And, I think it's this aspect of searching our heart and our being every day. Being the change just came up. How are we living into being the change? And yes, with the self-care and the healing, that is a way we can be the change, to show up in a state of thriving instead of surviving, so we can be good to one another, so we can hold space and commune with one another in a healthy, open-hearted, loving way. And when we are accessing that state of thriving, how are we using our voice, our presence, and our actions to be the change in the communities with the people that are around us? Whether it's sharing a quote by a person of color, whether it's outstretching a hand to extend an opportunity, like we just saw Marty do with Terrell, Dr. Marty do with Terrell. We all have an opportunity, if we really are present to it every single day, to allow the dream to move through us. And it feels like a divine responsibility to listen, to be aware, and to answer the call as soon as we hear it. So it feels like a great privilege to be here and to be with people that are willing to do the work and go the distance.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you so much. I love you very, very much.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to just share a couple of last things to look forward to. I'm so enjoying the Awakening Weekend process of having 3 shows to explore topics. And next weekend, we are exploring discovering the miracles of divine love, the connection to what divine love means to any of us. Obviously, no one religion or one approach. We all have our own unique connection to divinity. But when we are connected, when we are clear channels for spirit to flow through, is when the miracles happen. And so we've got Marianne Williamson, we've got the beautiful twin Ray, Shakina, and Sananda joining us. My co-host for all 3 shows will be Eden Amadora. Wonderful music with Johanna Beekman and Josh Jaffe. We just added Jimmy Twyman is going to join us. I've got to add him to the poster. Reverend Deborah Moldau will be with us, and Astarius Miraculi, who is a beautiful, beautiful brother, will be with us as well. So that's going to be next weekend, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. So please not only join us, but share the word. I notice we have a lot of regulars that come. Please let people know about the Awakening World so we can grow our audience and get more people out there. And then one last thing I want to share is you met Christy Michaels, and she and I are going to be hosting another event, and it's the birth and rise of the divine feminine. On Christmas Day, we celebrate the birth of Jesus, and on January 31st, there's a growing movement to support the birth of the rise of the divine feminine, which for some is seen as Mary Magdalene. And so Christy always puts together amazing things, including Nina Gray. I think Nina is going to be on this show again. Yeah, she's giving me a thumbs up. So you'll get a chance to see Nina and many other wonderful people. And that's January 31st from 6 till 8 p.m. Pacific time. So that's some of the wonderful things that we've got coming up. All right, everybody. I always like to close the show by reminding people that I still call it the Sacred Sunday Show. It's part of the Awakening World series. And remember, we can make any moment sacred just by choosing to see the divinity in our friends and our neighbors. I loved how Dr. Marty reminded us to pray for our political leaders, especially the ones we don't agree with. And if we can even see the divinity in all, and if we can see the divinity in the people that we disagree with, if we can see the divinity and the sacred in all, that is how we change our world. Thank you, everybody, for being part of this beautiful Awakening World, this Global Peace Tribe community, and I look forward to my next connection with each and every one of you. Take care.